Conspiracy theorist Fraser Cain just posted a video talking about how NASA put the International Space Station in orbit, which is a complete lie. Russia put the International Space Station in orbit, and there's a reason why NASA has to decommission it, and Russia's not going to.
Consider the risks that when this thing actually re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's going to crash in a random location on Earth, and that NASA would be held responsible for that. And so they launched it, and they're going to be responsible for bringing it back.
Obviously they didn't. Russia put the International Space Station in orbit. They launched it in 1998. It wasn't until months later that Russia allowed America to start bolting things to it because of the treaties they'd been making for 10 years, because the Mir station was such a success for over 10 years and Skylab was a failure, only being inhabited for 24 weeks. NASA had no ability to inhabit space without Russia and eventually China. And so they came together hoping that maybe they could buy seats on the new Russian station. However, from the 1975 Apollo-Soyuz run until now, Russia and America cannot get along in space because America continuously rides their coattails and tries to claim claims for the things that they've done, like putting up the International Space Station. So Russia has to make videos like this, where they're clearly pointing out that if Russia has to leave, and Russia does leave, the International Space Station will just fall into the oceans. And Russia will threaten to do that if America doesn't follow by all the guidelines and standards that Russia has put up for America to participate in Russia's space station. Because America doesn't have a space station, has never had a space station, can't put up their own space station, or they would put up their own space station. So the best that they can do is lie about who put up the space station and the reasons why they have to deorbit it when Russia eventually leaves to make their own. And this is Russia constantly threatening they're gonna leave and you're gonna fall into the ocean and there's nothing you can do about it. At best, we're gonna try to, get Axiom Space to create a technology they still don't have because they can't put their own space station up, that's gonna make it possible for them to skitch onto the previous modules they posted on Russia's station.
I know it feels like a tragedy that the international community and NASA are going to be crashing the International Space Station into the ocean. And it is a perfectly functional space station, and there are astronauts who are flying to it, and they're doing tons and tons of science on board the station. And yet, the plan is to deorbit it. And I'm sure in your mind, you're already typing, why don't they just raise its orbit? Well, unfortunately, if you tried to raise its orbit, you would have to spend a ton of money to be able to raise the orbit, and then you're going to have to continue to maintain it. Otherwise, it's going to wear down. It's a machine. And so if you're just going to raise its orbit, then you might as well just continue staffing it and sending astronauts to it. And NASA doesn't have the budget for that. They have a new priority. They're going to the moon, and so they can't keep maintaining the International Space Station. Why don't they just send the space station to the moon? Well, the problem is the space station is designed to work in low Earth orbit, and to move it to the moon would require just a ludicrous amount of energy. It takes so much propellant to carry it up there. And it really, again, is still an old machine. And so it's going to be having maintenance problems, wearing down, and it was designed to work in low Earth orbit. Why don't they just sell it and give it to some commercial provider? Well, nobody can afford it. The amount that it would cost to be able to take on the responsibility. Consider the risks that when this thing actually re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's going to crash in a random location on Earth, and that NASA would be held responsible for that. And so they launched it, and they're going to be responsible for bringing it back.
These people are conspiracy theorists. Their channels make up nonsense. There's absolutely no weight or credibility to anything they say, and it's easily provable as false, like their claim that NASA put up the International Space Station when they clearly didn't. But like all cults, they're just a group of people that have belief structures. They can't do what they say they can do. They don't understand why we are not, and no matter what, all you have to do is point that out, and they're left in loss.